Hello Year 4, I hope you're all okay. Today in geography we're going to be thinking about what the climate is like in rainforests. By the end of this lesson you'll be able to explain the difference between climate and weather. You'll be able to explain what the climate is in the UK. You'll be able to use line graphs and bar graphs to show patterns and find patterns between the amount of rainfall and temperature in a rainforest over a long period of time. And you'll also be able to use the water cycle to explain the climate of a rainforest. So to start with, you have your retrieval questions. I've put this picture in the top right-hand corner here just to help you have a bit of a refresh from our work on different types of forests around the globe last session. So if you pause the video where you are and have a think and write the answers down to these 3 questions, please. Okay, so question number 1. What is the difference between a deciduous and a coniferous forest? Well, if you remember, that deciduous word means that it's home to lots of trees that do lose their leaves in a certain season. Whereas a coniferous forest is home to lots of trees that look a bit like a shape of a triangle like this. Do you remember I was doing this a lot last lesson? But they're also full of trees with needle-like leaves where their leaves don't fall off according to whatever season it is. I've just put some more answers on the board here. So question number 2, what are the 4 types of rainforest? So if I just go back to that first picture, we can see here that we have our temperate deciduous forest here, full of trees where their leaves fall off seasonally. We have our temperate coniferous forest here, where it's full of trees where the leaves do not fall off seasonally. We have our boreal forest here, home to mostly coniferous trees, but also very, very freezing temperatures. Did you remember how much of the year were the temperatures, freezing temperatures in a boreal forest? Do you remember? Fantastic. So between 6 and 8 months of the whole year is when boreal forests were at freezing temperatures. So would we find them in the UK? Probably not, no. And finally, we have our tropical rainforest. Now, we're going to be learning a lot more about the climate of a tropical rainforest today. To start with, to finalise these retrieval questions, what does a temperate climate mean? Do you remember? Well done. So the temperate climate means it's a climate where it's never extremely hot or extremely cold. So the UK has a temperate climate. As we said last lesson, the UK is never extremely hot like it is in Australia, but it's never extremely cold like it is in Antarctica. But we may have the perception when it's cold in winter that it's extremely cold, but it's not extremely cold. It's not as cold as it could be. So we just have a temperate climate. So, just a quick recap on the types of forest, which we've already had a look at then. We are going to be talking about this word a lot today. This word, precipitation. Precipitation. So, a 5-syllable word. The definition of precipitation is water released from clouds in the form of rain, freezing rain, sleet, snow or hail. So you can see here that we have a diagram of the water cycle. Now precipitation is this part of the water cycle here, where this water is released from the clouds, and you can see here it's released in the form of rain. So it's anything that is water that is released from the cloud, whether it freezes to form snow, or whether it's just really cold rain or it's just normal rain, it is water that's released from the clouds. So let's have a quick recap about the location of most rainforests then. So what do you notice from this picture? Pause the video and have a think, please. Okay, so you may have noticed that there are some areas that are green here, which signal that they are tropical rainforests. You might have also noticed this red line here, right in the middle of the world. What is this red line called? Do you remember? Fantastic, it's called the equator. And rainforests, particularly tropical rainforests, are found near to the equator. Now we know that there are 2 lines, one line above, slightly above the equator, and one line slightly below the equator. What did you notice about the location of most rainforests now? Can you describe their location even more precisely? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, so did you remember that most tropical rainforests are between the 2 tropics, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn? Do you remember which line is the Tropic of Cancer? That's right, this first line here is the Tropics of Cancer. So that means the line below the equator is the Tropics of Capricorn, and most tropical rainforests lie between these two areas. Now, we are going to be talking a lot about weather and climate today. Now, these words can be a bit tricky and confusing, and they can get a bit muddled up between the meanings of them. I want you to just have a think. What is the difference between weather and climate? Can you pause the video now, please, and have a think? Okay, so looking at this first word, climate. So a climate is the usual or average weather conditions over a long period of time. So we know that the weather can change in just a few hours. It could be sunny one moment, rain in the next, and even have a rainbow in the sky the next. But climate takes hundreds and thousands, even millions of years to change. We can identify the UK as having a temperate climate. Now that won't change tomorrow or the day after or the week after that. That has been a temperate climate for many, many years, and it will continue to be a temperate climate for many years too, based on the average weather conditions over a long period of time, just like we're going to find out what the climate of a tropical rainforest is today. So that might give you a bit of a clue on what weather is. Now, weather is the specific condition on a given day. It's what the forecasters, so the weather people on the TV, predict each day. They might predict that there might be showers of rain where you are, but in another area of the UK, it might be really sunny or snowing, okay? And that changes every single day. And the weather includes the temperature, so how many degrees it is, the cloudiness, the humidity, the chance of precipitation, so that water being released from the clouds in the form of water or freezing rain or snow or sleet or hail. And it usually covers a span of a few days. So you could have a look at the weather app on your phone, or you could go into Google and type the weather. And maybe today it might be 5 degrees, but tomorrow it might be 7 degrees. And that changes every day. But the climate stays the same over a really long period of time. Let's have a think then. What is the climate like of a rainforest? Well, there are no seasons in a rainforest because the climate is the same all year round. So they don't really know. The people who live and the animals that live in the rainforest don't know the difference between summer or winter or autumn and spring because the climate is the same all year round. And we know that in the rainforest there's lots and lots of rainfall. And to give you a brief understanding of how much rainfall it gets every month has an average rainfall of at least 6 centimetres of rain. So you could get a ruler and think, well, how much is 6 centimetres of rain? And it's a lot of rain. In a rainforest, it usually rains every single day. We're going to learn a bit today why it rains so much in a rainforest and how this links to the water cycle. Temperatures are hot all year round, and because these temperatures are really hot, it also means that it's very, very humid in a rainforest. There's lots and lots of water vapour in the atmosphere, which can make it feel like there's not a lot of fresh air in the atmosphere. If you've been to a really, really hot country like Spain before, Spain can be quite a humid place, especially in the summer, where it can often feel like it's quite a sticky air. It's quite hard to really breathe in. And so the climate in tropical rainforests is very hot and very humid. And although there are seasons, they do exist, but they're very different to ours because the temperature doesn't change much across the year. And seasons are purely defined by how much rain that the rainforest gets. So there are different types of seasons in terms of rain. There is a wet season where they get lots and lots of rain, and a dry season where they get not as much rain, but still a little bit of rain. Now we can see here that there is a place called Manaus in Brazil. Now if you've been following our reading sessions, you will remember that Manaus is the place where all the children are trying to get to, and that is a place which has a tropical rainforest in it. We are going to be having a look at some line graphs and some bar graphs in a moment, which shows the average monthly temperatures over a whole year in Manaus in Brazil. So here is a line graph, and it shows the average monthly temperature. And we want to think, how much does the temperature change? But first of all, we're going to have a closer look at this line graph and show exactly what it's showing. So we can see here that across this line, it's showing the month. So January all the way through to December. And up this side shows the temperature in groups of 5. So 0 to 5, what might be between 0 and 5? What's halfway between 0 and 5? Well done, 2.5. So this halfway point could show 2.5 degrees Celsius. It's always useful to look at what it's measuring in. So can you see up here, there's a standard line which kind of shows around about 27 degrees Celsius for the whole of the year. Now, pause the video and have a think. How much does the temperature change? Pause the video here, please. So the temperature doesn't change much throughout the whole year. You can see that it dips slightly, and if we want to know what month it is, we can see it dips slightly in heat in March, but only to about 26 degrees Celsius. And then it rises back up to about 27. And then in, let's have a look, September, it rises a teeny tiny, about 1 Celsius. And then it's the same, it's quite consistent throughout the whole year. So the temperature stays at a steady temperature of about 27 degrees. Now this one here shows a bar graph. Now this bar graph shows the average amount of rainfall each month for Manaus 2. So it shows how much rain in millimetres, we can see here, each month gets. So I want you to pause the video and have a good look at this graph and think, what is this graph showing? Pause the video here and have a think, please. So this graph is showing, you're right, that some months have a lot more rainfall than others. And we can start to see here the dry seasons and the wet seasons. Now, I've given you the same bar graph to have a think, which month has the most rainfall? And how do you know? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, so we can see here that the most rainfall is about 314 millimetres. That is my longest bar, so we can work down and see that this month is March. So March has the most rainfall. If we wanted to find out which months have the least rainfall, what does that word least mean? Yeah, it means a little amount of rainfall. So pause the video and have a think. Which month has the least rainfall? Okay, so does May has the least rainfall? No, because it's 256 millimetres, but we know that there could be a lot less than that. What about June? No. I can see that my lowest bar, my least amount of rainfall is in August, where it only has 58 millimetres of rainfall. Fantastic. So even though the amount of rain changes throughout the year, like we've just seen, there's usually rain every single day in tropical rainforests. So even though it's called wet season and dry season, it isn't actually a dry season, it still rains. So some people say that they call some seasons in the rainforest the very wet season, which when looking at our graph could be such as March or April. And then they have the not so wet season, which could be considered as June, July, August, or September, and even October too. So you can see that in the rainforest, it rains so much. I want you to have a think. Why do you think it rains so much in the rainforest? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, so we are going to be speaking about this in part 2 of geography.